In a recent video, I discussed why North Americans from the US and Canada are flocking to Belize as a retirement destination. There are a lot of pros to moving to Belize, but there are also some cons and some things that maybe you should consider before making a long-term move. So in today's video, we're going to talk more about some reasons why you might not want to move to Belize. Welcome back to Almost Retired Abroad. If you're new here, I'm Kimberly, and on this channel we talk about living, traveling, and working abroad so you can retire and enjoy life on your own terms. And I want to start with a little caveat that this is not at all meant to be negative. If we're thinking about moving anywhere, whether that is to another city in our community, another state, or even clear across the country, there's always going to be pros, cons, and considerations. So in this video, we're just going to focus on some of the considerations. Again, if you want to know more about some of the pros, check out my previous video, which I will link down below in the description. So let's get to the first reason why you might not want to move to Belize. And this one seems like it should be pretty obvious and pretty straightforward, but maybe it's not something that you're thinking about. But the location. So it's great that the location is close to the US and just a short plane ride to Canada, but it is also located in an area that is prone to hurricanes. So if you've ever lived in a state like Florida or Texas or Louisiana, you know that hurricanes are no joke. And Belize is prone to natural disasters related to hurricanes and flooding. So I'll give you a couple examples. Some recent notable weather events in Belize over the last few years include Hurricane Nana, which struck in September of 2020. Causing an estimated $20 million worth of damages. Hurricane Lisa caused significant damage in November of 2022, as well as plenty of destructive flooding when it made landfall southwest of Belize City. Tropical Storm Nadine hit Belize in 2024, and Tropical Storm Sarah, which was a very slow-moving storm, made landfall in 2024. And sometimes when we think about tropical storms versus hurricanes, we want to think that tropical storms are less severe, but Sarah actually caused some really severe flooding across many parts of the country. So again, if you're thinking about moving to Belize, this is something to consider. And if we take a look even at some local news articles, you can see that the flooding is not just due to hurricanes. So on this website, which I'm going to share with you, is called lovefm.com. It is a news radio channel that also posts news on their website. So you can feel free to check it out after you watch this video if you want some more information. But it talks about as recently as July 1st, 2025, flash floods hit Toledo villages. And the farmers are now assessing crop damage. And as we kind of scroll through the site, you can see northern Belize dealing with severe flooding, road closures due to flooding. So this is something to consider if you're thinking about making Belize a place that you're going to retire long term, or potentially considering it as a home base for a slow travel lifestyle. You want to take a look at what parts of the country you're moving to and how bad the flooding may or may not be, and how susceptible that particular area is to hurricanes. And so, we talked about the flooding, and one of the other things that we mentioned in the previous video was the infrastructure. So while the government of Belize has been working to improve the infrastructure, it still very much is a work in progress. So I'll share an article with you. It came out late last year in Forbes called Moving to Belize, a guide for Americans. It talks about a lot of the pros of moving to Belize, but it also talks about some of the cons. And one of the main cons they mention is the infrastructure, specifically internet and electricity and transportation. So while internet has improved significantly in Belize, it may be slower than some of the other places that you're used to. According to the article, it is mid-range in terms of speed at 31 megabits for downloads, which could be an issue if you're doing things like video calls, or you're trying to work remotely. I think Starlink is actually available in Belize. If you know, leave it in the comments and please share with the viewers of this video. But just know that internet is a work in progress. And on the article, they also talk about electricity, how electricity outages are common, but supply and reliability has improved over time. So they are making headway, but there's still some work to be done. So when you're thinking about a place to either purchase or potentially to rent in Belize, you'll want to check out what the infrastructure is like. One of the things, though, I think that is interesting about Belize is that they actually have a lot of off-grid living. And Some people might see this as a con. I think it can be seen either way. It's just going to depend on your perspective. And I think it's important to remember that whenever we're thinking about moving somewhere, we are probably going to have a mindset shift because things are just going to be different. Like, I know when I was first thinking about off the grid living, I was thinking about like, a shack in the woods or something like super rustic. But in Belize, they actually have some communities that are completely sustainable. So I'll give you an example. So there is a neighborhood in the Cayo district called Carmelita Gardens, and it is a fully sustainable riverfront community that is completely and totally off grid. So basically what this means is that rather than relying on the government for power, they have solar power, they have, water catchment systems and reverse osmosis. There are lots of different types of off-grid living options in Belize where you can still have a modern home, but not necessarily be reliant on local infrastructure for your power and your water and so on. So if you're seriously thinking about moving to Belize, whether you're looking for, to purchase a home or a condo, or you're just looking to rent something, you want to look into the infrastructure and find out what makes the most sense for you. You might feel that you need to be connected to the local infrastructure, or there may be some off-grid living that does actually meet your needs. So again, just another consideration if you're thinking about moving to Belize. So if you're finding value in this video, please consider giving it a like. It helps YouTube to recommend it to other viewers just like you who are also looking for information about Belize. Thanks. Now back to the video. So another consideration is the fact that Belize does not have any shopping malls. And so for some people that might be a deal breaker. I mentioned in a previous video that there are a number of retirees that are moving to the northern part of the country in the Corozal district because it's only about 9 miles from the Mexico border. So they can easily, go across the border and shop at places like Walmart, Sam's Club, Home Depot, because they don't have any of those places in Belize. So I guess, if you're living in Corozal, it could be fairly convenient for you to go to Mexico and just do some shopping runs and come back. But if you're living in other parts of the country, like one of the islands or one of the Keys, or further south in the country or in some of the more rural areas, it's not going to be convenient to be going to Mexico every time you want to shop at a big box store. So I know that, for some of you, you're probably thinking, oh, that's not a big deal. I'll just order everything on Amazon. Well, the thing is, they don't really have Amazon in Belize. It's not to say you can't order from Amazon. It's just you're not going to get that quick prime shipping that you're probably used to. So, sometimes ordering on Amazon is as quick as just clicking a button, and depending upon where you live, the items that you order could be to your house in like an hour. It could be the same day or in a couple of days. Well, if you're going to be ordering Amazon in Belize, be prepared for it to take a few weeks to even a month or more for the items to arrive, again, depending upon what you're ordering, where it's being shipped from, and so on. So for those of you that have been doing research about moving to places like Panama and even Costa Rica, honestly, where they don't have like full-on Amazon service. Panama is making some improvements in that area, but a lot of people that live in these types of places typically use shipping services. So they might have some sort of a shipping service in like Miami or in Texas. So you would order your items off Amazon. You have an account with a shipping company. The shipping company receives your items for Amazon, and then they'll get it to you in Belize or wherever it is that you're living. So that's why it's going to take time. So you're not going to be able to get items as urgently if you're living in Belize. So again, not necessarily a deal breaker. I feel like, again, this is a mindset thing. Like for me personally, I think if I didn't have access to Amazon, I would really be thinking a lot harder before I put things in my shopping cart, because I would know that it's going to take a while for it to get there. So I probably would spend less money on Amazon, knowing that I was going to have to really be weighing each of these decisions a little bit more heavily. So the other thing about shopping in Belize is that Belize does have import fees. And so that means it's going to make some everyday items more expensive. So for example, if you're grocery shopping, if you're sticking to things like local produce and local meats, you should be fine paying local prices. Belize has some, excellent fresh organic agriculture. But if you're looking for some of those comforts of home, some of those like frozen foods or, just some specific name brand items, It's not saying you can't get them in Belize, but they're going to cost more because they're imported. The other thing that you might not like or you might want to consider before moving to Belize is that it's not uncommon for items in the grocery store to be expired. And this is typically some of those processed foods that are like canned and boxed items. And again, I'm doing research on Belize. I don't live in Belize, but if you want to find out more about what it's like grocery shopping in Belize, you can check out this video where they actually take you on a shopping trip in a local grocery store so you can really see what that's all about and what it looks like, specifically on Ambergris Key, and that's a very popular area for expats. So I will link it down in the description below so you can see a little bit more about what that's like. So don't just take my word for it, take a look at the video and see for yourself. So one other thing you might find frustrating about living in Belize is something that you might experience in other countries. So in some Latin American countries, you probably heard people talk about mañana time, and where people are like, oh, I'll get to that mañana. So maybe you need to get some work done at your home and you're expecting somebody to come and they say, oh, I'll be there mañana. And mañana doesn't necessarily mean tomorrow. That might mean Friday or next Tuesday or a week from now or a month from now. So it's kind of the same thing in Belize, but rather than mañana, they have a phrase right now. So somebody might say like, oh yeah, I'll do that for you right now. But just know that right now doesn't necessarily mean that people are going to drop everything to get it done right this instant. And again, this is just a cultural difference and something you'll have to get accustomed to. Know that, whatever you're asking for will likely get done. It's just the time frame is a little more, a little bit more of that relaxed vibe. So you're just going to have to, be patient. And you're just going to have to be a little bit patient with that. All right. So finally, the last reason why you might not want to move to Belize is because of the healthcare. So in the last video, I mentioned how, again, a lot of retirees are moving to that northern area, that Corozal district, where they get access to Mexico, not only for shopping, but also for healthcare. It's because in Mexico, it's obviously a much larger country than Belize. They have a lot more doctors, a lot more specialists. It's important to keep in mind that Belize is a fairly small country. It has less than 500,000 people. And, it is not an overdeveloped, overrun country. So while they do have doctors, they just may not have all of the specialists that you're looking for. So if you're someone who is a retiree and you are dealing with some sort of a chronic condition or some sort of major health concern or consideration, Belize may not be the place for you. So that's why it's important that while you're in your research phase that you do your due diligence to find out the medications that you take. Can you receive them in Belize? Do they have a type of doctors that you need to see? When you're considering health insurance or a medical plan, do you need one that has like a medical evacuation or something that can get you back to your home country in case you need a major surgery? Again, the government of Belize recognizes this is a problem and they have been building more hospitals and trying to make healthcare more readily available, but it is still a fairly small and developing country. So while these things will likely get better over time, it's something that in the immediate future, you probably should consider if you're thinking about making Belize your retirement home. So I hope you found this information helpful. I'm really curious to know if you are considering moving to Belize or if there are other countries that are on your mind. Share that down in the comments below because I am planning future videos for this channel. I'm also planning my upcoming travel for the remainder of 2025, and I've already started also booking some trips for early next year to scout and explore some other potential retirement destinations. So if there's some places that you'd like to see me talk about, please feel free to share that below and I'll try to cover them in a future video. I hope you found this information helpful. As always, thank you so much for watching. See you next time.